A pause in aid, the US freezes funding. The United States has made a significant decision with global implications. It has frozen most of its foreign aid for a period of 90 days. This unexpected move has sent shockwaves throughout the international community. Many nations rely heavily on US aid, and this freeze will undoubtedly have far-reaching consequences. The decision reflects a changing political landscape within the US. There is growing pressure to prioritize domestic issues over international commitments. Critics argue that the US spends too much on foreign aid while neglecting its own citizens. This aid freeze will affect a wide range of programs and initiatives. Development projects, humanitarian assistance, and security cooperation are all on hold. The impact will be felt most acutely in countries grappling with poverty, conflict, and natural disasters. Without a reliable flow of US aid, these nations face an uncertain future. Their ability to provide essential services, rebuild infrastructure, and maintain stability is now in jeopardy. The 90-day freeze may be temporary, but its effects will be long-lasting. Exceptions to the rule where aid still flows. Even within the framework of the US aid freeze, there are exceptions. These exceptions highlight strategic priorities and ongoing commitments that the US deems essential. Understanding these exceptions provides crucial context to the broader picture of the aid freeze. One key exception is emergency food programs. The US recognizes the importance of addressing acute food insecurity and will continue to provide assistance in this area. This commitment reflects a humanitarian imperative to prevent starvation and alleviate suffering. Another exception is military aid to Israel and Egypt. These long-standing allies receive substantial military assistance from the US, and this support will continue uninterrupted. The decision to exempt them from the aid freeze underscores their strategic importance to US foreign policy in the Middle East. These exceptions demonstrate that the aid freeze is not a blanket policy. It is a calculated move with specific goals and considerations. However, the exemptions do little to alleviate the concerns of other nations that depend on US aid for their development and security. The weight of US aid, a global lifeline. To grasp the true magnitude of the US aid freeze, it's essential to understand the sheer scale of US contributions globally. The US stands as the world's largest single donor of foreign aid, playing a pivotal role in alleviating poverty, promoting development, and responding to humanitarian crises. In 2024 alone, the US contributed over 40% of the UN's humanitarian aid budget. This funding is a lifeline for millions worldwide, providing essential resources for food, water, shelter, healthcare, and education. The impact of this generosity is immeasurable, saving lives and transforming communities. Beyond the UN, the US also provides bilateral aid directly to numerous countries. This assistance supports a wide array of programs, from strengthening healthcare systems to promoting democracy and good governance. The withdrawal of this support will create a significant void, hindering progress and leaving vulnerable populations at risk. The US aid freeze, therefore, represents not just a reduction in funding, but a potential unraveling of decades of progress. The consequences for recipient nations could be devastating, jeopardizing their hard-won gains in health, education, and economic development. Ripple effects, health, education, and security at risk. The US aid freeze will have a ripple effect across various sectors in recipient countries. Health, education, and security, in particular, are likely to suffer significant setbacks. These sectors are intertwined, and disruptions in one area can have cascading effects on others. Health programs, for instance, rely heavily on US funding. The aid freeze could lead to shortages of essential medicines, disruptions in vaccination campaigns, and a weakening of healthcare infrastructure. This, in turn, could result in a resurgence of preventable diseases and increased mortality rates. Education is another sector highly vulnerable to aid cuts. US funding supports teacher training, provides scholarships, and helps build schools. The aid freeze could force schools to close, deprive children of access to quality education, and limit future opportunities for advancement. Security, too, is at risk. US aid helps strengthen law enforcement, counter terrorism, and build peacekeeping capacity. The aid freeze could undermine these efforts, making countries more susceptible to instability, violence, and conflict. The consequences for both human security and regional stability could be severe. Section 5, a double-edged sword, consequences for both sides. The US aid freeze impacts both recipient nations and the US itself. It could undermine US influence and security. Soft power is crucial in international relations. The aid freeze risks jeopardizing this soft power. Other actors might fill the vacuum, leading to instability. The US must weigh short-term gains against long-term risks. Section 6. Expert opinions. Voices from the front lines. The US aid freeze has ignited a firestorm of debate among experts in international development, foreign policy, and humanitarian assistance. Their insights provide valuable perspectives on the potential ramifications of this decision and underscore the complex challenges it presents.
Dave Hardin, a former USAID assistant administrator, warns that the aid freeze sends a terrible message to the world about American leadership. He argues that it undermines U.S. credibility and weakens its ability to address global challenges. Hardin emphasizes that U.S. aid is not just about charity, but about advancing U.S. interests by promoting stability, democracy, and economic growth.
Saliza UK Ling, director of the Chin Human Rights Organization, highlights the human cost of the aid freeze. He points to the plight of refugees and displaced communities who rely heavily on US assistance. Ling argues that the aid freeze will exacerbate their suffering and could lead to a humanitarian catastrophe.
Abdullahi Boru Halake, a Horn of Africa security analyst with Refugees International, warns of the security implications of the aid freeze. He argues that it could destabilize fragile states, fuel conflict, and create breeding grounds for extremism. Halake emphasizes that U.S. aid plays a vital role in conflict prevention and peace-building efforts.
Section 7. A fractured world. The erosion of trust. The US aid freeze has implications that extend far beyond dollars and cents. It represents a breach of trust, a fraying of the delicate web of relationships that bind the international community together. This erosion of trust could have profound and long-lasting consequences for global cooperation. For decades, the US has positioned itself as a champion of development, a beacon of hope for those struggling to overcome poverty and conflict. The aid freeze casts a shadow over this legacy, raising questions about the reliability and predictability of US commitments. The suddenness and unilateral nature of the aid freeze further exacerbate the situation. Many recipient nations feel betrayed, their faith in US partnerships shaken. This sense of betrayal could make it difficult to rebuild trust and could hinder future collaboration on shared challenges. The aid freeze reinforces a perception of US disengagement from the world, a retreat from its global responsibilities. This perception could embolden other actors with different values and interests to fill the void, potentially leading to a more fragmented and unstable world order. Section 8. The price of isolation. America's diminishing influence. The US aid freeze is not an isolated event. It is part of a broader trend of inward-looking policies that threaten to diminish America's global influence and undermine its long-term interests. By turning away from the world, the US risks ceding its leadership role and creating a vacuum that others will inevitably fill. The world is facing a myriad of complex and interconnected challenges, from climate change and pandemics to terrorism and cyber warfare. Addressing these challenges effectively requires global cooperation, strong alliances, and a shared commitment to finding solutions. The US, with its vast resources and unparalleled diplomatic reach, has a critical role to play in leading this global effort. However, by retreating from its international commitments and pursuing an agenda of isolationism, the US is undermining its ability to shape events and protect its interests. The aid freeze is a stark reminder that America's strength lies not just in its military might or economic prowess, but also in its ability to lead, to inspire, and to work collaboratively with others to address shared challenges. By abandoning this role, the US risks paying a heavy price, a world that is less stable, less prosperous, and less secure for all. Section 9. A call to action restoring global partnerships. The US aid freeze is a wake-up call highlighting the importance of global partnerships. It's time to reaffirm America's commitment to international development and rebuild trust.
End the aid freeze and restore funding for essential programs. Educate the public and policymakers about the importance of foreign aid.
Adopt a strategic, forward-looking approach to foreign aid. Focus on long-term investments in sustainable development and human capital.
Prioritize partnerships with donor nations, institutions, and local communities. Enhance aid effectiveness and promote local ownership.
The challenges today are too complex for any one nation to solve alone. The US must reclaim its role as a global leader.
Restore credibility, reaffirm commitment to global development, and create a brighter future.